"Are you at my mom's house right now?" Ryan said it like a normal question, but my hand locked so hard around the phone my knuckles hurt. I was standing 3 feet from his mother's kitchen sink, close enough to smell dish soap and tomato sauce still warm in the pot. She was right across from me, frozen with a plate in one hand, watching my face change before I even answered. A second earlier, her fingers had been on my cheek. Not by accident. Not in some blurry way I could explain off. She touched me because she wanted to, and I had not stepped back. Now Ryan was in my ear from 800 miles away, and his name on my screen felt like a gun going off in a quiet room. "Yeah," I said. My voice came out rough. "Corinne? No, not Corinne anymore." In my head now she was Claire. I don't know why that shift happened right then, but it did. Maybe because my best friend's mom had cracked, and what stood in front of me was just a woman who looked scared and alive at the same time. Ryan let out a quick breath. "Good," I figured. "She texted me and said you got the bed put together." I swallowed and glanced at Claire. She stood very still, one hand pressed flat on the counter, waiting. "Yeah," I said again. "Finished it." "Man, thank you, seriously." Ryan gave a short laugh. "She acts like she can do everything herself, but you know how she is." I did know how she was. That was part of the problem. I had known her since I was 13. Back when Ryan and I used to bike across town, raid his fridge, and get yelled at for leaving our socks in the living room. She'd been the steady one. The adult who somehow kept the house warm even when money was tight, even when Ryan's dad stopped showing up to stuff that mattered, even when life looked like it was trying to wear her down piece by piece. Back then, she was just Ryan's mom. Now I was 25, standing in her kitchen in suburban Tennessee with her touch still on my skin, and none of it felt simple anymore. "You still there?" Ryan asked. "Yeah." "You mind putting her on for a sec?" Claire shut her eyes just for a second. That was all Ryan said, like he had no clue that the whole room had tilted. I covered the phone with my hand. "He wants to talk to you." She didn't move. Then she drew in one slow breath, set the plate down, and held her hand out. I gave her the phone. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, and if I hadn't been standing right there, I would have believed her voice was steady. Ryan started talking fast, the way he always did when he was tired and trying to sound upbeat. Something about work in Houston, a launch delay, a guy in his building who kept burning food and setting off the alarm. Claire smiled at the right spots, asked if he was sleeping enough, told him he sounded worn out, told him to eat something green for once in his life. It was almost worse hearing her sound normal. I leaned back against the counter and stared at the floorboards. My chest felt packed tight. 5 minutes ago, I had been standing close enough to kiss her. Now I was listening to her tell her son to take vitamins. When she finally handed the phone back, her fingers brushed mine. This time both of us pulled away too fast. "Love you, Mom," Ryan said. "Love you too." The call ended. Silence took over the kitchen so fast it rang. Claire looked at the dark phone screen in my hand, then at me. "That," she said softly, "is why this can't be careless." I opened my mouth, but nothing clean came out. There was too much in it. Want, shame, anger at myself, relief that Ryan hadn't heard anything strange in my voice, hate for the relief. "It's not careless to me," I said. Her eyes lifted to mine. They were bright, but she wasn't crying. Claire didn't strike me as someone who cried in front of people unless she was all the way broken, and she wasn't broken. Shaken, yes, exposed, yes, but not broken. "Then what is it?" she asked. I had no answer that didn't sound ugly, so I looked away first. That was the worst part, not the attraction, not even the guilt. It was how honest the question was, because if this had just been some cheap thrill, I could have shut it down and walked out. I knew how to walk away from dumb choices. I've been doing it for 2 years. Ever since my mom died, I had built my life around avoiding anything that could rip me open again. Work. That was safe. Routine. Safe. My little rental in Murfreesboro on the side street nobody cared about. Safe. I fixed decks, hung doors, built shelves, patched drywall, assembled furniture for people who swore they could do it themselves, until the third strip screw sent them online looking for help. It paid enough. It kept my hands busy. Most days that was enough. Feelings were where things got expensive. I met Ryan when we were kids, and for years his house had been the one place I could walk into without knocking twice. His mom would be making tacos or grading papers or yelling at us to quit slamming the back door. She taught middle school art then. Later, she moved into community classes and private workshops. Same energy, though. Same way of making people feel like they belonged in the room. A month ago, Ryan texted me out of nowhere. "Hey man, Mom bought some giant bed frame and thinks YouTube can save her. Can you go over there before she throws a board through a wall?" I laughed when I read it. Said yes before I thought too hard. It had been a while since I'd seen her. Ryan was in Texas full-time now. His mom was in Franklin alone in that quiet house near the edge of town, the one with the white porch swing and the big maple tree out front. I figured I'd go over, bolt some pieces together, take a check she'd insist on writing, and get out. That was the plan. Then she opened the door. She looked familiar enough to knock the air out of me and different enough to make me feel bad for noticing. Not younger, not older in any dramatic way, just fully there. Hair tied back loose, faded black t-shirt, jeans, no makeup I could see, and those eyes landing on me for one extra beat before she smiled and said, "Evan." That's me, Evan. Nobody had said my name like that in a while. I followed her down the hallway carrying my toolbox, telling myself to get a grip. Just Claire, Ryan's mom, the same woman who used to cut oranges for us after basketball practice. Only I wasn't 16 anymore, and she knew it. The bed frame was spread all over her bedroom floor in heavy walnut pieces, half the hardware still in plastic bags. I crouched down and started sorting bolts, pretending that gave me something solid to hold on to. She stood in the doorway with a mug in both hands, watching me. "Still good with your hands?" she asked. I glanced up. "That sounds loaded." She laughed, and there it was, that warm, low laugh I remembered from years ago, except now it landed different. Not background noise, not motherly, just a woman laughing because I said something she liked. "You know what I meant," she said. "Sure." I started fitting the side rails together. She came in and sat on the chair by the dresser, one leg tucked under her, still watching. Most people talk too much when I work. They hover, apologize for the mess, explain the instructions like I can't read. Claire didn't. She let the room breathe, asked a question now and then. Told me Ryan had been worried about her doing it alone, asked how business was, asked if I was eating anything besides diner food and gas station coffee. At some point she mentioned my mom, not carefully, not with that stiff pity people use when they want credit for being gentle. She just said, "Your mother would be proud of the man you turned into." My hand stopped on the wrench. I kept my eyes on the bolt because looking at Claire right then felt dangerous for more than one reason. "Maybe," I said. "She would," Claire said. Simple as that, no speech. No soft violin version of grief, just certainty. Something in me shifted. Maybe that was where it really started. Not in the kitchen, not with her hand on my face, not even with the bed. It started when she said the thing nobody else in my life said out loud anymore and made it feel normal to hear. By the time the frame was standing, the room felt smaller than when I walked in. Not physically, just charged, like every move had gained weight. I wiped my hands on my jeans and stepped back. "There, it'll hold." Claire stood up slow and tested the edge of the mattress foundation with one knee. Then she looked at me, not the bed. "You build things like you mean it," she said. I tried to laugh it off. "I just don't like callbacks." "No," she said quietly, "it's more than that." Then my phone buzzed. Ryan. And everything that had been building in that room found a name. I should have left after that first visit. That would have been the smart move. Tighten the last bolt, make some joke, carry my toolbox out, and let the whole thing die before it had shape. Instead, I started finding reasons to go back. Not every day. That would have made it obvious, even to me. But enough that it became its own pattern. A shelf in the laundry room, she said, was pulling loose from the wall. A cabinet hinge in the kitchen that just started acting weird. A warped board on the back steps. Little jobs. Real jobs, mostly. Small enough that I could pretend I wasn't inventing half the urgency in my head. Claire never pushed. That made it worse. She'd text only if there was a reason, or at least something that looked like one. I'd answer too fast. Then I'd be in my truck heading toward Franklin, telling myself I was helping an old family friend. That was the line I used. Even alone, I used it. The second Tuesday, she had coffee ready when I got there. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "You say that every time someone does something nice for you," she said. I took the mug and leaned against the counter. "Not true." "It's true enough." Her house felt different in daylight. Less charged maybe, but more lived in. A bowl of lemons on the counter. A stack of sketchbooks near the dining room table. Reading glasses next to an open mail pile. It wasn't lonely in an empty way. It was lonely in a held-together way. Like someone had learned how to arrange silence so it looked decent from the outside. I fixed the hinge in 10 minutes. Then I stayed another hour. She asked about work. I told her about a client who bought 6 bar stools online without checking measurements, then blamed me because their island was too short. She laughed so hard she had to set her mug down. I told her about the rental house I was helping flip in Nolansville, where every wall hid a new surprise. She told me one of her students had shown up to a pottery class wearing dress shoes and left furious because clay got on them. None of it should have felt important. But it did. That was the trick of it. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't some big reckless move early on. It was comfort, easy talk. The kind that sneaks up on you because it doesn't look dangerous while it's happening. The third time I came by, she had donuts on the counter. I stared at the pink box. "You trying to kill me?" "You loved these when you were 17. I laughed once. I also thought energy drinks counted as breakfast. "That part hasn't changed." We stood there shoulder to shoulder, looking into the box like it held something more serious than sugar and bad choices. Then she said, "You've gotten thinner." I glanced over. "That your polite way of saying I look rough?" "No," her voice went quieter. "It's my way of saying grief doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just hollows people out slow." That one landed hard. I looked away first, reaching for a donut I didn't want any more. "You always talk like that." "Like what?" "Like you can see through drywall." She smiled, but only with part of her mouth. Only when people are standing still long enough. I should have made a joke, changed the subject. Instead I said, "Most people don't notice." "They notice," she said. "They just don't want the work that comes after." That stayed with me, not just the words, the way she said them without trying to win points, like she'd learned that lesson herself. A few days later, Ryan called me while I was replacing deck boards for a guy out near Smyrna. "You been checking on Mom?" he asked. I had the drill balanced against my thigh. "Yeah. Here and there." "Thanks, man." He said it easy, trusting. No edge to it, no suspicion. I stared out at the yard too long before answering. "No problem." He started talking about work, about some mess at the plant, about a supervisor nobody liked. I said the right things, asked questions, kept up my end. But the whole time something ugly sat heavy in my stomach. Ryan wasn't dumb. If I'd told him I was helping his mother with house stuff, grabbing coffee, hanging around after the work was done, he probably would have just thanked me again. That was how much faith he had in me. And that was the part that made me feel dirty. Nothing had happened. Not physically. Not even close if you were being strict about it. But I knew enough to know that nothing happened can hide a lot. After that call, I pulled my phone out 3 times to text Claire that I needed some space. I never sent it. A week later, she texted me first. "You busy?" I looked at the message while standing in line at the hardware store. "Depends." "Why?" The pause before her reply was long enough to matter. I made too much chili. "Need a second opinion." I actually laughed. That should have made it clearer. That should have sounded like a line because it was. A light one, but still. Something had shifted enough that neither of us was pretending every visit needed a broken object attached to it. "You ask all the handymen to evaluate chili." I wrote, "Only the picky ones." I should have said no. Instead, I was at her house 40 minutes later, washing sawdust off my hands in her kitchen sink while she set out bowls like this was normal. Maybe for her it had already started to feel normal. Maybe that's what scared me most. Not that she wanted me there. that I wanted to belong there. The chili was good, too spicy for me, which she enjoyed. "You're making fun of me in my weak state," I told her, reaching for water. "You'll survive." "I might not." "You're dramatic. Only when wounded." She shook her head and laughed. Then the laugh faded and she stayed looking at me a second too long. That happened more and more. Those pauses, not huge, not movie stuff, just tiny misses in the rhythm where both of us knew the moment could turn if either person let it, so we kept not letting it. Until one night we did. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays had quietly become ours before either of us admitted it. I came by after work because she said the hallway light was flickering. It was just a loose wire in the fixture, 15 minutes, 20 tops. She stood under the archway between the kitchen and the hall while I tightened the connection. When the light came back steady, she clapped once like I'd performed surgery. "Show off," she said. "I fixed a wire." "You fixed my wire." I came down off the step stool and looked at her. That line wasn't dirty on paper. Out loud, with the way she said it, it absolutely was. We both knew it. Claire's face changed first. Not panic, just a brief flash of "there it is." I set the stool aside. "I should go." She nodded once. "Okay." Neither of us moved. The hallway was narrow. We were too close. I could smell her shampoo, something clean and soft. She had paint on the side of her hand, dried blue near the thumb. I had this stupid, sharp thought that real life never warns you when it's about to stop feeling manageable. Then she stepped back, not far, just enough to make the choice for both of us. "Evan," she said, and her voice had gone low and careful, "I need you to tell me if I've imagined this." I felt my pulse in my neck. "Claire." "Don't do that," she said. "Don't be kind in a way that makes me feel crazy." I stared at her. She folded her arms, then unfolded them right away, like she hated how defensive it looked. "I know what this is supposed to look like from the outside. I'm not confused about that. I'm not asking you for anything. I just need the truth." The truth, such a simple word for something that can wreck a room. I rubbed a hand over my jaw and looked down the hallway at the stupid fixed light, at the framed prints on the wall, anywhere but her face. "No," I said finally. "You didn't imagine it." Her breath left her in a quiet rush. I should have stopped there. Clean answer, honest, dangerous enough. Instead she asked, "When did it start?" I gave a broken laugh. "You really want that conversation?" "Yes." I thought about lying, saying I didn't know, saying it just happened somehow, but that would have been cowardly, and we were already too far in for cowardly. "The day I came to build the bed," I said. Claire held very still. "You said something about my mom," I went on. "And it wasn't pity, it wasn't weird, it just—" I shook my head. "It hit me." Her eyes stayed on mine. That was enough. "No," I swallowed. "Then I looked at you." That landed between us and stayed there. She nodded once, almost to herself. "Okay." I hated how much relief I felt saying it out loud. "I haven't done anything," I said quickly. "I know that matters." "It does." "I'm not trying to be," I stopped. "A creep," she said. I winced. "Yeah." Claire's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "You're not." "That's not really my call." "No," she said, "but it's still true." She looked tired then. Not old. Just tired in a way that made me wonder how long she'd been carrying herself through empty rooms. "I haven't felt wanted in a long time," she said, almost casually. Like it was safer if she said it plain. I didn't answer because there wasn't a safe answer. Her eyes flicked up. "That wasn't bait." "I know. I'm not asking you to fix that either." That one almost made me laugh for the wrong reason. Fixing stuff is kind of my whole thing. That's exactly why I'm saying it. We stood there both hearing more in that sentence than she actually said. I looked at the door, then back at her. Then the stupid part of me, the part that had been quiet too long, asked, "If this is the truth, then what happens now?" Claire let out a breath through her nose. "I have no idea." That was the first answer she'd given me in weeks that made me trust her even more. No grand speech. No fantasy. No pretending this was romantic because it felt intense. Just honesty. And somehow that made me want her more. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter before either of us could say anything else. She glanced over, then stiffened. "Ryan," she said, "I felt the whole night shift. You should answer." She nodded. Before she picked it up, she looked at me once like she was checking whether I'd vanished yet. I hadn't. That might have been the moment we crossed the line, even though we still hadn't touched, not because of desire, because after that, neither of us could pretend we didn't know exactly what we were doing. Ryan didn't call long. That almost made it harder. Claire put him on speaker for a second because she was in the middle of rinsing brushes and didn't want paint water on her phone. I stood at the far end of the kitchen like distance could make me invisible. Ryan was upbeat, distracted, talking about some work deadline and a guy on his team who had nearly fried a system because he skipped a step. Claire laughed in the right places, asked if he was eating, told him to stop living on protein bars. Same as always. I kept my eyes on the floor. Then Ryan said, "You alone?" Claire's hand stopped moving. It was tiny. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. I did. "Yeah," she said. It came out smooth, fast but smooth. I looked up at her. She did not look back. That was the first lie. Small, clean, easy to miss. But once it landed in the room, I felt it everywhere. Ryan kept talking. Claire finished the call, told him she loved him, set the phone down face up on the counter. Then she just stood there with one wet brush in her hand, staring at nothing. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally I said, "I should go." She nodded right away, almost too fast. "Yeah." I grabbed my keys from the table, but when I got to the front door, I stopped. Not because I was hoping she'd call me back. I stopped because something in my chest was already burning. I turned around. That can't happen again. Claire was still by the sink. She leaned one hand on the counter like she was bracing herself. "I know." "No, I mean it." My voice came out sharper than I meant. "If Ryan asks, you can't lie for me." Her face changed, not angry exactly, but struck. "It wasn't for you." I took that hit because she was right. "For us then," I said. "Whatever, it can't be that." Claire looked down at the brush still in her hand, then set it in the sink. "I know," she said again, quieter this time. I wanted that to settle it. I wanted the right words to make me feel like the right kind of man again. Instead, I stood there watching her, feeling how thin and useless words could be. "I'm sorry," she said. "That bothered me too." "Don't. It's still true." "Yeah, well, I'm not exactly innocent here." Her mouth pressed tight. "No, you're not." That should have stung. It didn't. It just felt honest, and by then honesty was the one thing I could still respect in that house. I left. In the truck, I sat with both hands on the wheel and didn't start the engine for 5 full minutes. My mind kept replaying the question Ryan asked. "You alone?" The casual way he said it. The instant way she answered. I've been telling myself all along that nothing had happened yet, like that made me clean. But lies don't care whether lips touched. They start earlier than that. I drove home and tried to act like I had some control left. I cleaned my kitchen even though it was already clean, answered 2 work emails, took a shower, turned on the TV and muted it. Around midnight, I found myself standing by the window looking out at the parking lot behind my building, phone in my hand, reading a message Claire had not sent. That was the other strange thing. She didn't chase. She didn't text me some late-night confession or apology. No sad-face message. No, "Please talk to me." Nothing. That should have made it easier. It did. The next morning, I threw myself into work so hard my shoulders ached by noon. I was helping remodel a basement in Brentwood, framing out a storage room for a couple who kept changing their minds about dimensions. Usually I like that kind of work. Measured lines, visible progress. Something crooked gets made straight. That day I missed a cut by half an inch. My client noticed. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah." He looked at the board, then back at me. "You sure?" I wanted to laugh. Or tell him, actually, no, I might be halfway into ruining my life and my best friendship because I forgot that lonely people can catch fire even without touching. Instead I said, "Didn't sleep much." He nodded like that explained it. At lunch, I sat in my truck with a sandwich I didn't eat and stared at my phone. No text from Claire. One from Ryan. Mom says the bed frame looks great. Knew you'd handle it. I read that 3 times. Then I put the phone face down on the seat and shut my eyes. That was the real pressure point, not just the attraction. Ryan trusted me so completely that he was using me to feel better about her being alone. I was the proof in his head that she had people, that she was okay. He was leaning on that without even knowing it. By the end of the day, I had a plan, not a good one. Just the kind men make when they want to feel honorable without doing the hardest thing yet. I was going to stop going over there. No speech. No dramatic cutoff. I'd answer politely if Claire texted, keep it practical, say I was slammed with work. Let the thing starve. That was the cleanest option left. I believed that until Friday at 6:12 p.m. when my phone lit up. Claire. I let it ring twice before answering. Hey. Her voice was steady but not relaxed. Hi, sorry to call. You don't sound sorry. That got a tiny exhale out of her, almost a laugh. No, I guess I don't. I waited. Then she said, my garbage disposal is jammed and making a sound like a chainsaw. I can't get it to stop. I leaned back against the truck, closed my eyes. Claire. I know how this sounds. Do you? Yes. That shut me up. There was a pause. Then she added, I called because it's broken. I'm also calling because I would rather hear you tell me no than spend the whole night wondering if you disappeared. I looked out across the lot at the gas station sign flickering at the corner. That was her. Always a little too direct once she decided to stop hiding. I should have said no. Instead I asked, did you turn the breaker off? Already did. Any standing water? No. I rubbed my hand over my mouth. I can be there in 20. Okay. No victory in her voice. No soft thank you dragging more out of the moment than it could hold. Just, okay. When I got there, the house looked the same as always. Porch light on, kitchen window glowing, quiet street, totally normal from the outside. Claire opened the door before I knocked. She had changed into gray sweats and a navy t-shirt. Her hair was down, a little messy, like she'd run her hand through it too much. She stepped back and let me in without trying to touch me. Under the sink, she said. I went straight to work. Maybe that sounds cold, but I needed it. I needed the sink, the flashlight, the reset button, the smell of old plumbing and lemon cleaner. I needed something with parts and a cause, something that would do what it was supposed to do if I handled it right. Claire stayed back this time. That somehow felt more intimate than hovering. You had a spoon lodged in it, I said after a minute. That tracks. You just feeding silverware to appliances now. It was an accident. Sure. She crossed her arms. You always this smug when you rescue people. Only when they deserve it. That almost gave us a normal rhythm again. Almost. I got the disposal spinning right, ran water, tested it twice, then stood and dried my hands on a dish towel from the counter. Claire took one step closer. Not enough to crowd me, just enough that I had to notice. Thank you, she said. I nodded. You should probably keep spoons out of there. I'll make a note. The kitchen went quiet. I could feel the thing waiting between us. Not words exactly, just the point we'd both been circling for days. I set the towel down. I meant what I said. She held my gaze. About lying. About all of it. This can't turn into some hidden thing. Claire looked tired again. You think I want that? I think lonely people can tell themselves a lot when they're getting something they need. The second it came out, I knew I'd gone too hard. Her face didn't crumble. That would have been easier. She just got still. You're right, she said. They can. I looked away first. That's not all on you. No, she said. It is. I waited for anger, defensiveness, something. Instead, she asked, do you know what bothers me most? I didn't answer. That you're acting like I dragged you into this with casseroles and broken cabinets. Her voice stayed quiet. You walked in with your own empty hands, Evan. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Yeah. And maybe that's the ugliest part, she said. Because if you were just some reckless kid chasing an older woman, I could write you off. If I were just some desperate woman enjoying attention, you could write me off. But that's not what this is. No, I said. She came another step closer. So say the whole truth. I looked at her then. I want you, I said, no cushion around it, no careful wording. It hit the room flat and hard. Claire shut her eyes for half a second. When I'm not here, I went on, I think about being here. When I'm working, I catch myself wanting to tell you stupid stuff that happens during the day. I hear songs Ryan used to play in his truck, and I hate that my mind jumps to your kitchen. I hate that I know what your coffee mugs look like. I hate that I know which floorboard outside the laundry room creaks. I hate all of it. Her eyes opened again, wet but steady. Okay, she said, that almost made me angry. Okay. What do you want me to do with that, Evan? I had nothing, because she was right. Confession doesn't solve anything. Sometimes it just lays the knife on the table where both people can see it. I ran a hand through my hair and turned away. I don't know. Claire waited a beat, then said the thing I think she'd been holding back the longest. I want you to. Simple, quiet, no performance. That was worse than if she'd kissed me. My whole body went tense. I could feel the distance between us like something physical, like a wire pulled too tight. Then she said, and I hate that too. I laughed then, once broken and tired. Good. She almost smiled. I should have left again, I know that. I keep knowing the right move about 10 seconds too late. Instead, I stayed where I was, and Claire stayed where she was, and the silence stretched until it changed shape. She spoke first. If Ryan wasn't part of this, she said, would you still be this scared? Yes. That surprised her. Why? I looked at the counter, the fruit bowl, the folded hand towel, all these plain little things inside a life that was not plain to me anymore. Because I've spent 2 years not letting myself need anybody, and this feels a lot like needing. That landed. Her whole face softened in a way I hadn't seen before. Not flirtation, not loneliness, recognition. I know, she said, and maybe that was the moment I understood the real danger. It wasn't just that I wanted her. It was that she understood the shape of the wound under the wanting. She could see where the empty places were. She knew what they sounded like. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Both of us flinched. I took it out. Ryan. This time it wasn't a text. It was a FaceTime request. I stared at the screen. Claire went pale. Answer it, she whispered. I hesitated 1 second too long. Evan, her voice sharpened. Answer it. So I did. I tapped the screen, and Ryan's face filled it at a bad angle, all forehead and tired eyes. He looked like he was in some hotel room, collar unbuttoned, lamp on behind him. Dude, he said, finally, you busy? Every nerve in my body lit up. I looked straight ahead, not at Claire, just finishing up work stuff. Ryan yawned and dragged a hand over his face. Sorry, quick question. Did Mom ever say if that weird sound under her sink got fixed last month? She mentioned it and then I forgot. I think my heart actually stopped for a second. Claire did not move. I forced air into my lungs. Yeah, I said. She told me about it. I can check in with her tomorrow. Ryan nodded. Cool. Then he squinted at the screen. You in your truck. Yeah. It came out too fast, but he didn't react. Man, you look wiped, he said. Long week. He started talking about flight schedules, whether he should come home next month or wait till summer. I answered where I had to. Claire stayed completely silent, one hand pressed flat to the counter so hard her knuckles had gone white. Then Ryan said, Hold on. He looked off-screen. Actually, let me call you back. My boss is texting me like the building's on fire. Okay. Night, man. Night. The screen went dark. I lowered the phone slowly. For a second, neither of us breathed. Then Claire turned away and put both hands over her face. That's it, she said into her palms. That's it. I thought she meant for the night. She didn't. She dropped her hands and looked at me, eyes bright and furious now, but not at me. At herself. At the whole mess. I'm done standing in my own kitchen acting like a teenager, she said. I'm done making him an idiot in a conversation he doesn't even know he's in. I stared at her. Claire. No, she shook her head. You were right, the first lie changes everything. I felt something heavy settle in my chest because I knew where she was going before she said it. We tell him, she said, not dramatic, not loud, just final. I looked at her for a long moment. Tell him what? The truth, she said, all of it that matters. I let out a slow breath. Nothing happened. Her eyes locked on mine. Enough happened. That was the problem. She was right again. I looked down at my phone still in my hand. Ryan's contact photo staring up at me like proof of a life before this. When? I asked. Claire answered without blinking. Soon, before we get weak again. I didn't sleep that night. I went home, sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall until it got light. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's face on that phone screen. Tired, trusting, talking to me like I was still the safest guy in his life. By 6:30, I gave up on sleep and went to work. I had a fence repair in Spring Hill, then a cabinet install across town. Normal jobs, normal people. One woman apologized 3 times for having dog hair on the floor. A guy in a polo shirt wanted to stand over my shoulder and ask if I was sure that stud was centered. I answered, nodded, measured twice, drilled clean, did everything right. Inside, I felt like I was waiting to be hit by a truck. Claire texted me at 9:14. Can you talk tonight? I read it in the hardware store aisle between drywall anchors and wood filler. Yes, that was it. No heart, no extra line, no pretending we had anything soft left to lean on. I saw her that evening at a coffee shop in downtown Franklin instead of the house. Her idea, smart, public, neutral ground. The kind of place where nobody does something stupid because there are too many people close by and too much glass. She was already there when I walked in, sitting at a small table near the back. Black sweater, hair down, coffee untouched. She looked composed in the way people do when they've spent all day holding themselves together for this exact hour. I sat across from her. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then I asked, "You sure about this?" She looked at me hard. No. It was the most honest answer possible. I nodded, me neither. A barista called out some drink name that sounded too cheerful for the room we were in. A couple near the window laughed about something on a laptop. 2 college girls in leggings were sharing a muffin like the world wasn't tilted. Claire wrapped both hands around her cup and said, "I've been trying to figure out if there's a version of this where we tell him enough without making it uglier than it already is." "There isn't," I said. "I know. You want to tell him together." She took a breath. "I think it has to start with me." That bothered me right away. Why? Because I'm his mother. And I'm the one he'll feel betrayed by first. Her eyes lifted. "You don't know that." "I do, actually." Claire's jaw tightened, not because she disagreed, but because she knew there was truth in it. Ryan loved his mother in a way sons do when they've spent years worrying about her but still wanting to believe she's solid no matter what. Me, I was supposed to be simple, loyal, easy to trust. Guys like Ryan don't build backup plans for their best friends crossing emotional lines with their mother. It doesn't even occur to them. "He deserves both of us," I said. Claire nodded slowly. "Then both." We sat with that, then she said, "We need to be exact." "What does that mean?" "It means no dramatic language. No making this sound bigger or dirtier than it is. We tell the truth and we don't decorate it." I leaned back in my chair. "You teaching me how to confess now?" Her mouth twitched, but there was no humor in it. "I'm trying to keep us from turning honesty into theater." That landed because she was right. Pressure makes people perform. Either you shrink the truth to save yourself, or you blow it up because guilt wants punishment to feel noble. Neither one is real. I rubbed my thumb against the paper sleeve on my cup. "So what's exact?" Claire's eyes stayed on mine. "We tell him we got emotionally close. We tell him we both recognized it. We tell him nothing physical happened." I thought about that. "He's going to ask if we wanted it too." "Yes," she said, "and we tell the truth." I looked out the window at traffic crawling by on Main Street. That's the part that blows it open. It's already open. I laughed once low, yeah. The waitress, I guess technically barista, but she kept checking on tables like a waitress, walked by and asked if we needed anything else. Claire said no. I didn't even look up. After a minute I asked, "You want to call him or wait till he's back in town?" Claire shook her head. No waiting. Waiting is just cowardice dressed up as timing. I stared at her. That line's been in your head all day, I asked, since 5 this morning. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Claire noticed and shook her head. Don't. What? Don't get warm on me right now. I can't do both things at once. That killed the almost smile fast. Fair, I said. We picked that night. 8:30 after Ryan got off work. Claire wanted him home, not driving, not distracted, not squeezed between meetings. It was strange, sitting there planning the cleanest way to hurt someone we both cared about. At 8:27 she said, "Come with me." I hesitated. To the house. She held my gaze. If I do this without you there, I'll know exactly what that means. What? That I wanted you to let me carry your part too. I exhaled through my nose. Okay. The drive to her place was quiet. Separate cars, separate thoughts. I pulled in behind her and sat there for a moment after killing the engine. Her porch light was on. The house looked almost annoyingly normal. A place where someone should be grading papers or folding laundry, not preparing to detonate trust. Inside, Claire didn't offer me coffee, didn't ask if I was hungry, no soft landing. We went straight to the kitchen, then both changed our minds and moved to the living room like the kitchen had too much of us in it already. She sat on one end of the couch. I took the armchair across from her. At 8:31 she called Ryan. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom." His voice came through cheerful at first. That part never leaves me, the normal beginning. How regular life always sounds right before it stops being regular. "Hi, sweetheart," Claire said. "You good?" "Yes, is this still a good time?" There was a pause, tiny. "Sure, what's up?" Claire glanced at me once. Then she said, "Evan's here." Silence, not long, maybe a second and a half, but long enough that I could hear the room tone on his end, long enough that my body went cold. "Oh," Ryan said, nothing dramatic in it, just alert now, awake. Claire went on before either of us could lose nerve. "We need to tell you something, and we need to tell you straight." His voice changed. "What happened?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, staring at the rug like it could keep me from hearing my own life split open. Claire said, "Nothing physical happened." Ryan didn't speak. She swallowed. I could hear it. But over the last few weeks, Evan and I got too close emotionally. We let it happen. We recognized it too late. And we're telling you now because we are not going to lie to you or hide it. The silence after that was worse than yelling would have been. Then Ryan laughed once, not because he thought it was funny, because sometimes people do that when their brain rejects the first version of a sentence. "What?" he said. It came out flat. I looked up. Claire had gone pale, but her voice held. "I'm sorry." Ryan ignored that. "Evan." There it was, my turn. I leaned in toward the phone on the coffee table like the extra inch mattered. "Yeah." "What is she saying?" The question hit harder than if he'd just called me a traitor, because he was giving me one last chance to name the thing myself. "I got attached," I said. My throat felt raw. Too attached. I kept coming by. It stopped being about helping out. I should have shut it down sooner, and I did. Ryan's breathing changed on the other end. I could hear it. "How long?" "A few weeks." "Weeks," he repeated. I nodded even though he couldn't see it. "Yeah." "And you're both sitting there telling me nothing happened." Claire spoke quietly. "That's true." Ryan snapped then, not screaming but sharp enough to cut. "Don't do that. Don't say it like I'm supposed to feel better because you didn't sleep together." Claire flinched. I deserved that line and more. "You're right," I said. "You're right." Ryan let out a breath that sounded wrecked. "I sent you there." That one hit so hard I had to press my hands together to keep them steady. I know, I said. I asked you to check on her. I know. And this is what happened. Claire spoke again. Ryan, this is not all on him. He fired back so fast she barely got the words out. I didn't say it was. Then quieter, rougher, Mom, what are you doing? That was the first moment Claire looked like she might actually break. Not because he was angry, because he sounded hurt and young at the same time. She sat forward, forearms on her knees, like she needed to get closer to his voice. I'm trying not to insult you by pretending you're a child, she said. I'm trying to tell you the truth before it gets uglier. It's already ugly. Yes, she said, it is. He didn't speak. Then, do you have feelings for him? Claire closed her eyes for half a second, opened them. Yes. Ryan made this low sound, not a word, just pain finding air. Then he asked me, do you have feelings for my mom? No room left in it. No place to hide behind confusion or timing. Yes. The word sat there. Nobody rushed to fill it. Finally Ryan said, Jesus Christ. I stood up because sitting still suddenly felt impossible. Walked 2 steps toward the window, then stopped because pacing while your best friend's life cracks open over speakerphone feels obscene. I'm sorry, I said again, and this time I hated how useless it sounded. Ryan laughed that same dead laugh. You keep saying that like it's a wrench or something. Like you can tighten one thing and stop the whole frame from shaking. That line got me because it was mine. My language, the way I think. He knew me well enough to throw my own brain back at me. I know it doesn't fix it, I said. No kidding. Claire stood then too. Ryan, you can be angry at me. I am angry at you. Okay. And him. Okay. You don't get to okay this. That finally put steel in her voice. I'm not dismissing you. I'm refusing to argue with your anger like it's unreasonable. It is. Ryan went quiet again. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading most. Did either of you want more? Claire looked at me. I looked at her, no hiding left. Yes, I said. Claire answered right after me. Yes. Ryan exhaled hard, like the last support beam had finally given out. Unbelievable. That word hung in the room. Then he said, I need to get off this phone. Claire took 1 step toward the table. Ryan. No, his voice sharpened. No, I can't sit here and help you both feel better about being honest. You were supposed to be safe people. That one stayed in my chest. Safe people. I had been that for him once. I knew I had. Claire's voice dropped. You don't have to comfort either of us. Good, he said, because I'm not going to. Then the line went dead, just like that. No goodbye, no final curse. Nothing. Claire stared at the phone. I stayed where I was by the window, looking at my own reflection in the glass because I couldn't stand the thought of looking at her and seeing my own damage doubled back at me. After maybe 10 seconds, maybe a minute, she said, well. I turned. That's all you've got. Her eyes were wet now. If I start with more, I won't stop. I understood that too well. I walked back to the chair but didn't sit. He's going to hate me. Claire wiped under one eye with the side of her thumb, more annoyed than delicate. Maybe for a while. For good. She looked at me hard. Don't turn his pain into your punishment fantasy. I blinked. That was brutal, also fair. I'm not, I said. You are a little. I let out a breath. Maybe. Claire sank back onto the couch like the strength had gone out of her legs. This is what I mean. We don't get to make this about proving how guilty we feel. He gets to be hurt without managing us too. I sat finally, elbows on my knees again. How are you this clear right now? She looked at the dead phone on the table. I've had more practice ruining my own peace than you have. That shut me up. We stayed there a while without talking. The room felt wrung out. No charge left. No hidden electricity, just consequence. After some time, Claire said, you should go. I nodded, not because I wanted to, because she was right. At the door, I turned back. She was still on the couch, one arm folded across her stomach, the other hanging at her side. Smaller somehow, though not weak, just hit. "You okay?" I asked, and hated the question the second it came out. She gave me a tired look. "No." "Right." Then she added, "But I'd rather be wrecked in the truth than comfortable in a lie." I stood there with my hand on the knob. That sentence should have felt strong. Noble, maybe. It didn't. It felt expensive. I left without touching her. In the driveway, I got in my truck and sat there with the engine off. Claire's living room light stayed on. No movement in the window. No call from Ryan, no text, nothing. I started the truck and drove home through streets that looked exactly the same as they had that morning. That was the part nobody tells you. You can blow open your whole life and the grocery store still stays open late. The gas station still has one broken pump. Somebody still honks at a left turn. The world doesn't dim the lights for your moral collapse. It just keeps going. And now so did I, whether I wanted to or not. Ryan didn't call for 9 days. I knew because I counted without meaning to. Day 1, I kept my phone face down and still looked at it every 10 minutes. Day 2, I worked 12 straight hours on a garage conversion in Belmead and came home too tired to eat, which felt useful until I realized I had spent the whole drive imagining what Ryan might say if he did call. Day 3, Claire texted once. "You don't need to answer. He's not speaking to me either." I stared at that for a long time before writing back, "Okay." That was all. Nothing else fit. By day 4, people around me had started noticing I was off. My neighbor in the duplex next to mine, a retired mail carrier named Walt, caught me outside dropping a box of screws because I forgot I was holding them. "You drunk?" he asked. "No." "Then your brain's somewhere dumb." I almost laughed. "Something like that," I said. He looked at me a beat longer than usual, then nodded toward my truck. "Don't drive tired. Tired men make bad choices twice." He walked off after that like he'd done his duty to the universe. I stood there with screws at my feet thinking, too late. Work kept me moving but not clean. I made little mistakes. Forgot a tape measure on one job and had to drive back 20 minutes. Installed a shelf bracket half an inch low and had to redo it. Nothing huge. Just enough to tell me my head wasn't where my hands were, and that almost never happened. At night, I sat in my apartment with the TV on mute and listened to pipes knock in the wall. I thought about Claire more when I was trying not to than when I let myself do it. Not in some dreamy way. That part was gone. Burned off by consequence. What stayed was sharper, the look on her face after Ryan hung up. The way she said, "I'd rather be wrecked in the truth than comfortable in a lie." The fact that I believed her, that mattered more than I wanted it to. On day 6, she texted again. He answered this morning, just one line, "I need space." That's all. I typed 6 different replies. "I'm sorry, that makes sense. How are you? Do you want me to?" I deleted all of them. In the end I sent, "Thanks for telling me." She hearted the message. That stupid little reaction hit me harder than it should have. Not because it was affectionate, because it felt normal and nothing about us was normal anymore. Day 7, Ryan finally texted me. Not a call, just a text. "Need a few more days." I read it 3 times, then wrote back, "Take all the time you need." A minute later he replied, "Don't say that like you're being noble." I actually let out a breath. Not because the text was kind, it was, but it sounded like Ryan, sharp when he was hurt. Direct when he was trying not to say worse. I wrote, "Fair." He didn't answer. That weekend I took a job outside town just to stay busy. A woman in Laper's Fork wanted custom shelves in a converted barn office. Good money. Long day. Quiet road. I worked alone. Sawdust everywhere, radio low. Around noon, I stepped outside to eat a sandwich on the tailgate of my truck and caught myself looking at the sky like I used to when I was a kid and didn't know what to do with big feelings. That annoyed me enough to get back to work early. On the drive home, I passed Claire Street. I did not turn, but I slowed down, and that was its own kind of failure. By day 9, Ryan called. I was in the parking lot behind a flooring store, sitting in my truck with a cold coffee and a receipt on the seat beside me. His name came up and I just looked at it for 1 ring, 2, 3. Then I answered, "Hey." He didn't say hey back. "You free?" he asked. "Yeah. I'm in town." My grip tightened on the phone. Okay. I want to see you. Not friendly, not threatening either, just set. Where? He named a bar near the interstate we used to hit in our early 20s when we wanted burgers and noise and no chance of running into family. Not divey enough to be sad. Not nice enough to matter. I can be there in 20, I said. I'll be there. He hung up. I sat very still for a second, then started the truck. The place was half full when I got there, sports on TV. A couple of guys in work boots at the bar. Country song playing too loud through ceiling speakers. Ryan was in a back booth by himself, arms folded, untouched water in front of him. He looked older than he had 9 days earlier, not dramatically, just worn in a new place. I slid into the booth across from him. Neither of us reached out. That wasn't even an option. Hey, I said. Ryan gave one short nod. A waitress came by, asked if we wanted anything. Ryan said no. I asked for coffee because asking for a beer felt insulting somehow, like I'd be trying to make the moment easier to swallow. When she left, Ryan looked at me for a long second. I talked to Mom, he said. I nodded, twice. Okay. She didn't change the story. There was something almost accusing in that, which I understood. Hurt people want cracks to appear somewhere. They want someone to make it easier to choose a villain. I didn't either, I said. Ryan looked out toward the bar, jaw working. Yeah. I waited. Finally he said, I keep trying to figure out what part makes me angriest. I said nothing, that you wanted her. He shook his head. I mean, I hate that, obviously, but people want things. That part's gross, but it's not the whole thing. The waitress dropped off my coffee. Neither of us touched it. Ryan went on. I think the worst part is that you became part of the place I stored my relief. I blinked. What? He rubbed a hand over his mouth, annoyed already that he had to explain it. I live in Texas. I'm gone all the time. Every time I worried about her being alone, I had this picture in my head that at least home was stable, that there were still safe people around her. You were in that picture. He looked at me then. You don't get how much that mattered to me. The words hit clean and hard because they were true in a way I hadn't fully named. I do get it, I said quietly. Now I do. Ryan laughed once, no humor. Yeah, little late for that. I know. He hated when I said that. I could see it. But I wasn't going to defend myself against a fact. Ryan leaned back against the booth and crossed his arms tighter. Did she come on to you first? There it was. The question that should have come earlier, but pain has its own order. I answered right away. Doesn't matter. It matters to me. No, I shook my head. Not in the way you want it to. There's no version where I get to act like this happened to me. Ryan stared. We both let it build, I said. That's the truth. He looked down at the table. Did you kiss her? No. Touch her? I thought about her hand on my cheek and answered exactly. She touched my face once, that's it. I didn't kiss her. I didn't sleep with her. I didn't sneak around with her. Ryan's eyes lifted. But you wanted to. Yes. He swallowed and looked away again. That still hurt him maybe more than the physical stuff would have. Desire has a way of making everything feel more personal. For a minute all I could hear was the game on TV and silverware clinking somewhere behind me. Then Ryan said, She told me she felt seen. I didn't answer. He looked back at me. You know what pissed me off about that? What? That I understood it. That one caught me off guard. Ryan tapped the side of his water glass but didn't pick it up. I kept thinking, no, come on, that's manipulative. That's middle-aged loneliness dressed up as romance. That's my mom rewriting her life because she's bored. I told myself a lot of ugly stuff the first few days. I let him. He shook his head. Then I started replaying every call we've had the last year, every time she said she was fine. Every time I let that be enough because I was busy or tired, or because hearing she was lonely made me feel guilty, and I didn't want guilt during a 14-hour day. His mouth tightened. I missed a lot. That's not all on you, I said. Ryan gave me a look sharp enough to stop me. Don't. I nodded once, okay. He exhaled and stared at the table again. I'm still angry. You should be. I don't need your permission either. Got it. That almost pulled a laugh out of him. Almost. Instead he said, and I'm not giving you some blessing. Don't sit there and think this is headed toward one of those talks. I'm not. Good. The waitress drifted by and asked if we needed anything. Ryan asked for a burger like he'd suddenly remembered bodies still needed food. I said no. My coffee had gone cold untouched. When she left, he said, Mom asked me one question that I can't get out of my head. I waited. She asked me if I'd rather have her lonely and predictable or honest and complicated. I looked at him. Ryan laughed under his breath. I told her that was a dirty question. That sounds like her. He nodded before he could stop himself, then seemed irritated by the reflex. I said I wanted neither, he went on, and she said life wasn't offering those two options. Silence settled again. Then Ryan asked, what do you actually want here? That question mattered, maybe more than anything else that night. Not what did I feel, not what had happened. What did I want now after all of it had a body count? I looked at my hands on the table. I want to not be a secret, I said, and I want to not be a wrecking ball. Those are both true. Ryan held still. I care about her, I said. A lot more than I should have let happen, but if this costs her you, then it's poison, I mean that. Ryan's eyes narrowed a little. You'd walk. Yes. He studied my face like he was checking for performance, even if she didn't want you to. Yes. That answer cost me enough that I know he believed it. He leaned back, looked up at the TV, then away from it. She told me something like that. I let out a slow breath. The burger came. He took one bite like it was a chore, then set it down again. You know what sucks? He said. A lot of things. That got a real laugh. Small, unwilling, but real. Then he shook his head. What sucks is that you told me before it got worse. I frowned. I told you after it got bad. Yeah, he said, but not after the point where I'd find out some other way. That matters. I didn't know what to do with that. Ryan saw it and looked annoyed again. Don't get hopeful. I'm not done being mad. I'm not asking you to be. I might be weird about this for a long time. That seems fair. He picked up his burger again, took another bite, chewed, swallowed. It's not just weird, he searched for it. It messes with the map. What map? He looked at me like I was slow. The map in my head of who belongs where. My mom belongs in one part, you belong in another. There's not a road between those places. That was probably the clearest thing anybody had said about it. Yeah, I said, I know. Ryan wiped his hands, then finally drank some water. I went by the community center this morning. I blinked. Why? She's got that art show Friday. I'd forgotten, or maybe I'd pushed it out because it belonged to a future I wasn't sure existed. She almost canceled it, Ryan said. Said she didn't have the stomach. What did you say? His face changed a little, softer, but tired. I told her not to let family mess turn into one more way she disappears. That sounded so much like Claire it almost hurt. Ryan noticed my expression and rolled his eyes. Don't make a face. I'm not. You are. I sat back, okay. He took another bite, chewed, then pointed at me with half the burger. I haven't forgiven you. I know. There you go again. I almost smiled. Sorry. No, you're not allowed that one anymore. Fair. He set the burger down again and looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, I want you to stay away from her for now. That hurt, but I'd expected it. Okay. And I want space from you too. Not forever maybe. I don't know. But right now I need to know that if I ask for distance it means something. It does. He nodded once. Good. I looked at him. Are you going to the show? Yeah. I hesitated. Do you want me there? Ryan's eyes met mine. This was it. Maybe not final, but important. He wiped his hands slowly on the napkin before answering. I don't want you there for you. I said nothing. I want you there, he said, because if this is going to exist in the world at all, I need to see whether the two of you can stand in the same room with me and not turn it into some private little drama. I need to know whether you actually meant all that honesty stuff or whether you just used it because it sounded better than sneaking. I sat very still. That's not an invitation, he added. It's more like a test. I nodded, okay. You show up, you act normal. No touching. No intense corner conversations. No making me feel like a guest in my own life. Understood. Ryan held my gaze another second. And if I decide I can't do it once I get there, you leave. I will. He leaned back and finally picked up the burger for real. We sat there a while longer, not fixing anything. Just being in the same booth without lying. It wasn't friendship, not yet. It wasn't peace either, but it was something with edges that held. When we stood to leave, the old instinct kicked in for half a second, that thing where guys clap a shoulder or pull into a quick one-arm hug after a hard talk. Neither of us moved. Ryan shoved his wallet back into his jeans and said, "Don't make me regret Friday." I looked at him and answered the only honest way I could. I regret enough already. He stared at me, tired and unconvinced, and maybe, somewhere under all that trying. Then he nodded once and walked out ahead of me. I stood in the booth a second longer, staring at the cold coffee, the untouched fries, the dent his body left in the seat cushion. Friday was 3 days away. And for the first time since all this started, I wasn't scared of being caught. I was scared of what the truth would look like standing under fluorescent lights where everyone could see it. Friday night, I got to the community center 10 minutes late on purpose. Not late enough to make a point, just late enough to avoid standing around outside with my own nerves. I parked under a dead street lamp, killed the truck, and sat there with both hands on the wheel until someone behind me honked because they wanted the spot next to mine. The building was plain brick, flat roof, glass doors with flyers taped inside, pottery classes, youth theater, tax prep help, real-life stuff. The kind of place where people came to learn watercolor or vote in local elections, not watch a family try to hold itself together in public. Inside, the lobby smelled like coffee in a metal urn and floor cleaner. Folding tables were set up with crackers, cheese cubes, and cookies nobody would admit to wanting, but everybody ate anyway. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Along the far walls, Claire's paintings were hung in neat rows on portable display panels. I stopped just inside the doorway. She was across the room in a dark blue sweater and black pants, talking to an older woman with silver hair and giant earrings. Her hair was down, not done up, not trying hard, just loose around her shoulders. She had one hand wrapped around a paper cup and the other moving while she talked, like she was trying to keep her body busy. Every few seconds she glanced toward the entrance without meaning to. Then she saw me. She didn't smile right away. That mattered to me more than a smile would have. It meant she understood exactly what kind of room this was, what kind of night it had to be. A second later, Ryan stepped into view from beside one of the display panels. He had probably been standing there the whole time, half hidden. He looked at me across the room and gave one short nod. Not warm, not cold either. Permission. So I went in. I took a cup of bad coffee because having empty hands felt worse. A couple people from town recognized me and stopped me for small talk. One guy asked about the deck I'd repaired for his sister. A woman I'd seen at the hardware store said, "Isn't Claire talented?" Like this was the most normal reason in the world for me to be there. "Yeah," I said, "she is." And that was the strange thing. The room didn't care about our drama. The room cared about paintings and snacks and who parked too close to the curb outside. It was almost insulting. Then it became helpful. The world refusing to revolve around us took some of the heat out of the air. I made myself look at the paintings, not as an excuse to avoid them. Really look. She de-painted a lot of doors. Not literal front doors, not most of them. more like thresholds, hallways opening into light. A back porch with an empty chair, a kitchen window at dusk. One piece showed a woman from behind, standing in a room with half-packed boxes and one bright red wall. You couldn't see her face, but the way her shoulders sat told you enough. Claire had painted loneliness without making it pretty. That hit me harder than I expected. You made it. I turned. Ryan was standing beside me now, hands in his pockets. Yeah, I said. He looked at the painting in front of us instead of me. Mom almost took this one down. Why? She said it felt too exposed. I nodded because I understood that better now. Ryan glanced at me. You okay? It was such a weird question coming from him that I almost laughed. Probably not the point tonight, I said. His mouth twitched once. Fair. We stood there shoulder to shoulder, not close, but not staged apart either. Anyone looking at us would have seen two guys at an art show. Maybe friends, maybe not, that was enough. After a minute, Claire came over. She stopped with a little space between us, looking at Ryan first. Smart move, then at me. Hi, she said. Hi, I said back. Her eyes searched my face for one quick second, checking my condition maybe, or her own. Then she looked at Ryan again. You've had 3 cookies. Ryan frowned. You counting? I baked them, I know the pattern. He rolled his eyes. I had lunch like 6 hours ago. Still. And just like that, for maybe 5 seconds, they sounded like themselves. Not our broken version. Just mother and son, with history and habits too old to vanish because one ugly thing entered the room. I saw Ryan feel it too. His shoulders loosened a fraction. Then a couple walked up to compliment a painting and Claire shifted cleanly into host mode. She thanked them, answered a question about technique, laughed politely when the man said he couldn't draw a stick figure. She was good at this. Good at making people comfortable without making herself smaller. When they moved on, she turned back to us. This one sold, she said, nodding toward the painting of the kitchen window. That's good, I said. Ryan said, told you somebody would buy it. Claire looked at him with this soft surprise that told me she hadn't expected him to show up supportive at all, never mind supportive enough to predict a sale. For a second I thought she might say something too loaded. Thank you. I'm sorry. Some heavy thing better saved for another room. Instead she said, maybe you were right for once. Ryan snorted, don't get used to that. Again, normal, small, human, that was the real test, I realized. Not whether we could handle one big emotional conversation, we'd already done that. The harder part was whether we could let regular life back in without using it to fake that nothing hurt. A woman from Claire's class came over and pulled her away to meet somebody. Ryan and I stayed where we were. He watched his mother across the room, not with suspicion now, something more complicated. Grief, maybe. Or the first rough stage of seeing a parent as a full person and hating the cost of it. She looks lighter, I said before I could stop myself. Ryan didn't answer right away. Yeah, he said finally, she does. I kept my eyes on the painting in front of us. I'm glad. He looked at me. That doesn't make this noble. I know. There you go. I let out a breath through my nose, working on that. He almost smiled. Almost. People drifted around us. Cups refilled. Someone laughed too loudly near the snack table. A kid who'd clearly been dragged there by a parent stood in front of a landscape painting looking miserable. It all kept moving. At some point Claire came back with a man in his 60s wearing a blazer and expensive glasses. He shook Ryan's hand, then mine. Told Claire she had a mature eye for negative space, which sounded like something people say when they want to sound helpful. She thanked him kindly anyway. When he left, Ryan muttered, "What does that even mean?" Claire murmured, "It means he liked them and wants credit for vocabulary." That got a real laugh out of me. Ryan laughed too, and for one sharp second the sound of both of us doing that in the same space hit Claire right in the face. She looked down fast, blinking hard. Ryan saw it. So did I. He cleared his throat and said, "You should go talk to those people by the back wall. The one in the red scarf's been staring at the price list for 5 minutes. Claire looked over, straightened a little, and nodded. Okay. She started to leave, then paused. "Thank you for coming," she said. She said it to both of us, and she meant it differently for each. Ryan answered first. "I said I would." Then she looked at me. I didn't trust a long sentence, so I kept it simple. "I'm glad you didn't cancel." Something moved in her face. Not relief exactly, more like something settling. She gave one small nod and walked off. Ryan watched her go. Then he said, low enough that only I could hear, "This is the first time I've seen her look like herself in a while." I didn't answer because there wasn't a version of that sentence that didn't place me inside it. He didn't need one. After a while he said, "I still don't know what this becomes." "Neither do I." "If it becomes anything," he added. I took that hit and nodded. "That's fair." Ryan folded his arms. "I mean it." "I know." He looked at me then, really looked. "But I also know trying to freeze her life because I'm uncomfortable would make me a coward." That one surprised me enough that I turned fully toward him. He kept going before I could say anything. "Don't read too much into this. I'm still angry. I still think the two of you let something stupid happen. I still hate being in the middle of it." He swallowed. "But she's my mother, not my property." Those words sat heavy between us. I said, "You don't owe either of us that level of clarity yet." Ryan shrugged one shoulder. "Maybe not, but I owe it to myself not to become some bitter guy who mistakes control for loyalty." That sounded like something he'd worked for, something he'd had to drag himself toward. I nodded once. "That's hard." "Yeah," he said. "Well, here we are." We stood quietly after that. No big reconciliation, no hug, nothing polished enough to ruin it. Later, near the end of the night, when people were stacking cups and folding chairs and Claire was writing down the name of someone who wanted to commission a piece, I found myself by the exit, not hiding, just giving the room a little air. Claire walked over once the last cluster of guests moved out. Ryan was helping carry a display stand into the side room, close enough to see us, far enough to let the moment breathe. Claire stopped beside me, not touching. "You look tired," she said. "So do you." She let out a small breath. "That feels fair." We stood there side by side, looking out through the glass doors into the parking lot. "I don't know what happens now," she said. "No. I'm not asking for promises." "Good," I said. "I don't trust any tonight." That got the faintest smile. Then she grew serious again. "I won't do this in a way that costs him everything." "I know." She turned her head and looked at me. "And I won't ask you to wait around while he figures out every feeling he has." I thought about that, about what waiting meant, about what pushing meant, about how badly people can hurt each other when they dress impatience up as honesty. "I'm not going anywhere reckless," I said. Claire studied my face for a second, then nodded. "Okay." Behind us, Ryan dragged the last stand across the floor. It made a rough scraping sound, real and ugly and ordinary. He looked over. "You two done being weird by the door?" Claire closed her eyes for half a second like she was trying not to laugh. "Probably not forever," she called back. Ryan shook his head. "Great." I looked at him. He looked at me. Still hurt, still wary, still here. That had to be enough for one night. Claire picked up a box of leftover napkins from the table and tucked it under her arm. Ryan grabbed the coffee urn. I took the stack of empty trays without being asked. And the three of us carried things to the back room together, not healed, not ruined beyond repair either, just tired people trying to move carefully through a life that had gotten more complicated than any of us wanted. That was the truth under all of it. Not that love conquers, not that honesty cleans everything up. It doesn't. It just gives you something solid enough to stand on while you see what survives.